I need to ping my stream crew. Let's do this thing. Bam. And none of them can stop me. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Everything's working. Good. Good. Give people a second. Hmm. What did that just do? Wow, very unhelpful. Thank you. All right. Humans. Okay. Okay. Someone's here. I'm compiling my thoughts. And I'm not even out of the options menu. That's very exciting. This is gonna be fun. Let me let me get set up so I can see the chat. Oh, I jumped right in. I didn't even finish going yet. I was all in. Oh, Lord, my computer's cooking. Okay, cool. Not even doing anything. We're in a menu. Great. Let's unblock that vent, shall we? Give that some room to breathe. Oh, unreal. I'm not surprised. Hi, Yuri. It's not ass and titties. That will get me banned. So, sorry. But, hi. Ah, good lord. Okay. I'm going to studio mode and set this up to actually get the screen. I didn't even set up. I did not even set up. I was immediately just thoughts. So I'm jumping right in here, but I need to actually make it do the capture. That would be good. Okay. There we go. Okay, we got it. I got it. All right. Now get out of studio mode. We're good. Okay, let's it's a little unprompted. It was an Ari's idea, and I'm like, that's true. I should absolutely stream that. So here we are. We're in Sonic Racing Crossworlds. The music will start as soon as I click back into the window, and I will warn you now. I have muted it on my end because this is my first serious thought. Okay, before we can get to my feelings about buttons, the music, Sonic Team Racing's menu themes and shit were actually extremely good. It was Crush 40 doing what they do, and T-Lopes helping, and a bit of it. Like, it was an all-star cast of composers. This is maybe a 30-second loop. And I went to the bathroom, and while I was in there, no, there is no game music because I'm not clicked into the window yet. As soon as I click into it, it is going to go crazy. It is nice enough to silence itself when it's not in focus at present settings. And normally I hate that. But again, this is annoying as hell. You will hear it and you'll be like, why? It's fine the first 2,000 times. Unfortunately, you'll hear it about 2,700 and you'll be done. Hi, Liz. Second concern is it popped up the tutorial before I was even allowed in menus. The audio in that was also extremely obnoxious. It was several small videos that restarted their song every single time. and you couldn't skip them once you started unless you skipped the whole thing. I was like, okay, cool. They have changed every single input. And I'm really hoping there's something I can do about that. But off the top of my head, here we go. Brace yourselves. This is going to be... this is going to be a thing. I can't even see my volume when I'm like this. Is it okay? Is this tolerable? Can you hear me over it, or do I need to tweak it? The game doesn't seem that loud. I have OBS. I can't have OBS and this up at the same time the way I'm presently set up. Cool. So... Ina followed. Thank you, Ina. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. The way it has been since the PlayStation 3 is right trigger go fast, left trigger to drift, like one of the face buttons to shoot. Fine. Works great. Actually genuinely great. This one changed it so when you're doing tricks, it is... I want to say left... Right, it's right bumper, so it's the opposite shoulder and it's the bumper, not the trigger, so that's going to throw me. Accelerate is A, which I hate immediately. We have triggers now. They stopped doing that around the time we started having triggers on controllers for a reason. They just feel good for pedals. They basically are pedals, but for your fingers, right? And as best I can tell, going through this, there it is. You have the option of A, B, or right bumper. There is no trigger in the mapping whatsoever, so I'm hoping maybe there's a secondary use and I can use the triggers the way I'm used to. But as I understand it, Sumo Digital did not work on this one, and some people are really excited about that. It's supposedly just Sonic Team. But again, Accelerate is A, so I'm already like, oh no. So we'll see. I haven't even finished going through all this yet. I can't change resolution in borderless windowed. That's unusual. I might turn this down. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, there's no medium. There is no medium. It's good or bad. Okay. I'm running hot on the options menu. I don't know how to put this. It's Unreal Engine. I'm also worried about that. Because UE5 is supposedly kind of a resource hog. We'll see. Okay, I can turn on rendering scale, worst case. I can turn off blur. It's just blur. It's not motion blur, it's not bloom, it's just blur. Okay. We have volume. I'm not touching it right now. Okay. Cool. So I'm already really sick of this song. We got these again. Great. Yeah, none of this works, so that's fine. Let's, yeah, Mario Kart never stopped, but Mario Kart also, Nintendo just adamantly doesn't want to do triggers. And that's fine. They aren't, in a weird defense of Nintendo, triggers are not the most accessible thing in the world. If this song plays during matchmaking, I will kill everyone and then myself. Oh, online is banned until I do something on my own. Oh. Okay, we're doing a Grand Prix. It's all or nothing. Hi, Dodonpa. Oh, he's not even voiced. They didn't even voice our boy.
Now listen closely.
Gee, I wonder who that could be. I hope he's not grossly imbalanced. Oh, who do we got? We got Sonic in his traditional zoomies. We've got Tails still in Sonic's... What? Okay. Oh yeah, Zaz, everyone's favorite. Well, Blaze the Cat is locked and Joker's not here until tomorrow, so... Rouge is also locked. All my favorites are missing. Okay. I could be Wave, who I have forgotten existed. Yeah, probably character cart combo. I don't know. The only reason A to accelerate really bothers me is because, again, there has been 3 games in a row with the same control scheme. And it is now very suddenly different in a way that is inverted in many ways and kind of concerning. My stream might keep dropping in quality. I honestly don't know how much this is blowing up my computer. It will go quiet if I look, but I can look. I'm not dropping any frames. It might just be angry about rendering. Let's peek at what Task Manager says. No, we should be fine. I don't know what's up. I don't know. I actually don't know. Okay, so parameters. Oh. Handling and power and boost. I mean, so Sonic's basically a heavy, no acceleration but high boost. If this works anything like the other one's, boost is going to be huge. Knuckles is faster than... That's rude. She's been speed type for years now, but okay. 80-22. Can I mouse? No. No, I can't. 80-20-52. They are very slightly different. Look at that. Just go with my girl. I don't know what I'm doing here. Yeah, I'm not dropping frames or anything. I don't know, so... Oh, okay. Shadow's car and make your own car, supposedly. Tweak your car. Oh, gotcha. Well, they actually gave Amy a figure. They haven't done that in a long time, so good for her. She's re-hit puberty. Congrats, Amy Rose. Power is never my thing. And there's her car, which makes her suck shit. Wow. Wow. That's terrible. She steers so good, guys. She's slow as dirt, but she steers so good. You won't believe how good she steers. Tails' car. These are basically the same cars for a lot of these people as they were in last one. I don't... Alright, let's look at modify and Tails. Can I... Oh my god. Oh. Oh. Can I change its color? Oh. Okay. Well, that's more boost and acceleration, less handling. Okay, that's fine. I don't give a shit. I tend to know what I want from these things. Okay, yeah, that's literally the same wheels. This is ugly, but fine. There we go. Make her look okay. Thank you. Fuck you. Alright, wait. Why didn't you let me... Why can't I use it? But that is my... I made that. Why can't I use that? Oh. Okay. 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 I guess we'll start here for now. Okay. You got red rings. I don't know how I feel about that. Alright, sure, why not? Gadgets. Well, if I hit the button, it says screw you, so wait. Okay. Sure. I like going fast. Basically, yeah. It's just Sonic flavored. Red rings are in a lot of games. Okay. The tracks are variable is an interesting touch. Those are cool looking. I'll go with that. They changed the start boost, so we'll see how that goes for me. I am here.
Andy Rose, adventuring philanthropist, prefers kindness and cooperation. Designation, weak.
Alright, rude ass, calm down.
Yeah? We'll see who's weak by the end of this. Let's go, you glorified Ed Robo.
Not even glorified, he literally is one, but okay. Yes, I don't like that they're left stick now, but yes. So... Oh. Oh, you have to hold it and then... Oh, God, okay. Okay. I can use right stick to drift. I can live with that. Not right stick, right trigger. Give me your rings, whore. Yeah, I should drift.
Unacceptable.
Let's do this. Perfect.
Alright. Okay. Oh, I have a whole, like, shield I can use. I should do that? Sorry, I'm holding the button I normally use to do that kind of thing, so it's really throwing me off. And I just lob it at your ass. Alright. Oh, does it straight. Okay. Dinosaurs and shit. I don't think we're going through there. My car seems a little too fat of ass for that. Alright, calm down. Can I drop it? Okay, cool. That's sure a thing to make Boo do. Alright. I do not like left trigger being shoot. I really don't. I can fit with 3 in there. It doesn't seem to let you fuck it up. Mixed feelings. I haven't fucked up even on like spamming. That's fine, I didn't want any of those anyway.
Uncalled for, Amy.
Yeah, debatable. Okay, so we have the Mario Kart double item boxes now. We've got a whole separate portal up there. Who knows what that's about? Handling is definitely a little more important than it was in the last one. I'll just throw that down. I'm sure it won't mean anything. Yeah, probably is going for Mario Kart.
Yay! Go me!
I have earned coupons. Delicious coupons. Are you envious of my coupons? I will spend my Dodon bucks on the paw. Yes, I kind of figured that out immediately, thank you. Use tickets and retry just the round. That's... okay. Okay. I can live with that. That's alright. Mixed feelings on how it feels so far, I won't lie.
Analyzing strategic options.
Your options to get your dick punched. Alright, that's pretty. No idea where we are, but it's gorgeous. I am still here. Yes, I watched the tutorial, thank you. Okay, that's a little trickier than I thought. Oh, you have to be holding it or you just kind of sit there like a dipshit. Okay. Okay, we do not have our barrel rolls on this one. That is rough for me. I like having that. That is how I used to navigate, so that's rough for me. Hey, that's just a wall, Sarah. Yeah, I kind of saw it all happening. So is this target if I have them on time, or?
Selected optimal route.
Bit of a lock-on assist for hitting dude? What? So it missed him? Boo. Oh, not being able to adjust like that is so much harder. Okay. You know, I thought I was doing something there. Oh, that's cool. I love having my steering negated when I get hit, but not my speed. That's fun. Fuck you. Bad boyfriend. A is not item, Sarah. A is not item. You want A to be item so bad, but A is not item.
Final lap.
Okay, the plane still drifts, it's just really awkward. Sure, what's this way?
Unacceptable.
What the hell is the goo? Oh, okay. No, I hate steam. 1,000 meters of goo? Gotta go fast.
Finish.
Yay! Go me!
Well, see, I started hitting it like 1, and that was just a little too short. I don't know. It might vary a little. Oh, look at that. Team racing. I can't remember the ones before that. Team racing, it was literally with each of the 1, 2, 3s, you tapped the go button, and you would get a stage of boost, but if you fucked it up at any point, you would lose all of it that you built. You could start late or skip a number, but if you mistimed, it's an interesting. It's pretty redundant and easy once you get the hang of it, but it is an interesting thing to master. The dial's not bad. Interesting idea. It's a little less static. My Panda Express fortune cookie says expect a delightful message soon. Okay. Back to back, etc. Let's go. Oh, good. You can't skip that. Yes, I understood that immediately. We've already done that. I guess I couldn't guarantee that. Well, that was mean. Alright. Okay, we got a nice old fat... Oh my, they're all really tight corners. Losing rings when you hit a wall makes sense. I don't know how I feel about it, but it makes sense.
Let's do this. Excellent.
Watch out! Also means you've lost the ability to use tricks to adjust your trajectory, which I was a big fan of, actually. Ah, suck it, Omega. Your choice would have been what? Random? Yeah, you cannot fuck up the tricks anymore. I don't know what you did, but okay. The 1-2 is pretty obnoxious. Just keep hitting the wrong button to fire fucking shit. That's really great. Yeah, that counts. I got away with that. Except these nuts. That's not good. Don't touch that. What? Naughty Chow gave me treats? I'm never getting that. Meanwhile, my not rival is here to be... What's this button do? Yeah, you need good handling to get those. That's interesting. Stay classy, bombs.
Target with extreme prejudice.
I'll give you something to target, big boy. Took a while. Oh, don't do this Mario Kart crap to me. Alright.
Finish.
Hi, Solar and Bird. Oh, I'm sorry, Omega. I think you got wrecked. I think if I took a nap, he'd still lose now. So, there's that. Being able to change gadgets every race is nice. Team racing and the Grand Prix, your first map is the only one you got to choose anything for, so it's kind of pointless to choose anything at all. That's actually kind of interesting. Huh. I have mixed feelings.
Increasing hostility parameters.
Yeah, you do that, honey. Oh. In that time, I had already forgotten that it was A to go. Not what I wanted, but alright. We tried to be fancy. Oh. Smack you in the ass.
Coming through.
Sorry, traditional friend Cream the Rabbit.
1 and 2. 1 and 2. All just that for one. Now.
Okay, damn.
See you next time. All just
Yeah, thanks. Endless rings. Very good. Very helpful. Definitely what I need right now. Thanks, Oma Chow. You're doing me wonders. Good lord. Yeah, okay. Does this even do anything here? I just drop it.
Gotcha, shadow.
What's that do? It did nothing. That laid me into a wall and I died. Alright. Pretty Sunshine was nothing. So far I've got a great view of the back of his head is what I've got. Can I chain drifts? Okay, good. They kept that. I'm not that mad. Chaining drifts is huge. Handling is so different. Oh, that would have been good to save and cut the corner.
Unacceptable.
You do that. Okay, sure.
Final lap.
I don't know what that is, but I'll use it. Swamped, bitch.
Shiny. 1. Hi there. All just
Oh, it's so backwards. I keep trying to drift and use items in the wrong order.
see you next.
That's fine. That's not. There we go.
1 and 2.
Sorry, Eggy. Tails? I landed on him. Oh, we got that going for us. Suck it.
Target with extreme prejudice.
A little late. Sorry, Omega. Alright, it's still good. It just handles weird. I can get used to it. Defense game's going to be interesting because they have things for it. And that's always something I've considered to be a strength of Sumo's entries, is that you always had some sort of a defense usually. Transform was honestly the weak point in that. And it still had some.
File graceful _lost.exe not found.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Victory's so sweet. I gotta savor it.
Alright, victory dances are cute. Victory dances are cute. We'll give them that. Good, cute dances. Oh, Yuri followed me too. Thank you, Yuri. That happened a while ago. I was not paying attention. Race to unlock gadget slots that I have nothing to put in it yet. Yay! Also, your save doesn't transfer, as far as I know. Which we will not be elaborating on. Fuck you. Make fist big. Oh, the things you could do with a giant hand. The beta is at least through tomorrow, I think, and they're going to have a Joker event where you can play as Persona 5 boy. And there's a title you can earn, but apparently that doesn't carry? I don't know. Alright, I'll give Datonpa his funny little dance. That's okay. You do that, homeboy. That's going to be a GIF, I guarantee it. Someone's going to have that on lock. Look at him go. Look at that Tanuki rock. You want to be able to unlock him. Let's be real. Like, they better let you. Come on. They brought him back. Let us play as him. It's his cars.
I expect great
I'm hoping they'll have story mode again, because I like that, personally. Okay, so you earn... I get it. So you get some presets, good for that. Don't drop, I haven't had an issue with that yet. Level 1 quick, I don't have much issue with that. That could be interesting if you can stack, because you can go past 3. He wasn't in the last one either, but that's why I'm like, you know, he's always been a story guy. It'd be cool to... Oh, they have a ring limit on this one. I didn't even notice. Huh, that's a change. That makes sense. That actually makes sense to do. I like team racing, but if you get it far enough ahead, you're just uncontested and your top speed keeps rising. At some point, no amount of rubber banding stops the AI from taking off in that position or helps it catch up to you. You have to get up there a ways, and once you do, you're basically untouchable. So, right on. But it's rings. Take hit, you lose them all. Get rings with a successful start boost. That's interesting. Get rings using a dash panel or dash gate. Also interesting. Ring gang, ring ability. So they're in groups. Well, up to 3 items instead of 2 is good, but not for 2 slots right now. I like my double boost. I don't entirely know what a warp ring is. Alright. Well, I'm going to... Let's do that, and for the, we'll just do a ring. Oh, well, screw me. Get more rings, but are any of these okay? So you really don't have much you can do that's not already one of those. Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to, but I don't have the money for that. Rowlett was talking about hooking me up. E-. They came up with a whole new grade in the lettering system. Make me feel bad. Yeah, I saw. I'm just looking at stuff. That's Blaze the Cat's front from the last one. Yeah, they're still reusing a lot of assets. So, I don't know if Sumo is secretly involved or what. But... Okay, so we got a few custom... Okay, this looks pretty familiar. Barrage Lightning. That's a noise. I like the built-in laser bolts though, that's cute. That's Jokers, that's cute. Not a lot of options for this one. This looks like it's a problem. So, you cannot use parts from other classes. Really? So Amy's isn't here. I see. Handling was high, and I still felt like my handling was low, so that's actually really scary for the people with dog shit handling. Like, it felt like, maybe it's just because I'm getting used to it again, but like it does handle very differently from the last few. Buzz Bomber, that's cute. Interesting. Ghostly? More speed, less acceleration, less handling. Seems like it defeats the point. Like, all the customization for handling gives you less handling? More speed, and like, it had no speed. I didn't feel... I don't know. I was using a speed type. Yeah, I was using this, wasn't I? That's more acceleration, less handling. Okay, so I was at about a 40. boost is really low for speed type. That's surprising. I wonder if I should be working as a boost, but that's extreme gear. Because I am a booster. I don't want to do that to myself. Better handling, better acceleration. First boost defeats the point. This seems alright though. Let's buy a thing. There. We bought a thing. I'm earning stuff. Less speed, more acceleration, more handling, but not more boost. Unless I go zoom zoom, then it doesn't matter. Custom. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's something they didn't give you in the last one. So how custom can we get? Oh, okay. Pearlescent, good. This is where I get lost. Goodbye, everybody. Nice knowing you. This is what I need in life. Yeah, I'm gonna do Pearl. That sounds interesting. And then we just like do that, and then if it gets just right, you know, I mean, we can look around. Rubber, lame. Pearl, come on. Pearl. There's someone dodging and exploding in my emotes. Okay, cool. Okay. So if I come in the sub, if you come in a sub, they moan. I mean, if I come into the sub and we, I mean, it's aiming. We got some red in there, right? Like, or accent white, maybe. Yeah. Come on. Am I overthinking it? Yes, absolutely. Brighten it up. Okay, cool, perfect. And this was admittedly, I love doing this crap. It's just genuinely enjoyable to me. I kind of like the dark red a little bit. That's weird. It's yellow when the light hits it, but red when it. Oh, ooh. That's a look. I'm going for Amy Rose colors, but that is a look. Look, she can turn to her boyfriend. Andy red. Rubber. That is very red. That is extremely red. I'm always a sucker for some metal. That. You know, just a basic gloss seems alright. That seems rosy enough to me. Yeah, let's start with there. We'll play with that. Decals, what do we got? I put his face on it. Ah! Avalon rogues, triangles. This is grr. Okay, so you can do a little bit with it. Oh my gosh. Okay, square and up. Boy, everything's got a sound on this thing, huh? Oh, I can't take it off the front. I don't like that star. I don't feel about that. Let's go old school. Let's just do an old school star. Pointing straight the F ahead. Okay, so I get all the fun color options with this too. Oh, not really. Okay, so you can't, oh, you got a little thing up there. That's interesting. I just saw that, top left. Okay, you know, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. So you get to be really custom with these. I'm not going to get that into it. These are expensive. You kept the Sega horn. That is such a mean preview button, guys. Different visuals for each one. These are literally the same as in Team. There's mine. That's the one I usually use. Like, the visuals are new. I don't remember that one, but I didn't get them all. That's fun. Are they particle or... Yeah, they're particle. Kind of. That one seems new. There's a couple that might be new in there. Aura. Oh my god. When Amy Rose is fucking done. So the name changes based on... Okay, that's cute. Alright, we'll try a boost type. Is there more than one...
Yeah, let's go.
Alright, I don't know what the point of that list was. Oh, we have titles now and challenges. Okay. Look at him go! Sure. Okay. I can't access friendship. The power of friendship is not available to me at this time. Alright, let's, yeah, sure, that works for what I want to do. I want to test the machine. Mirrored is available, that's good. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we all got the one available, that makes sense. 3 Grand Prix worth of stuff available for just playing is not bad. And the promise of all this crap being DLC having their own Grand Prix is also a nice touch. CROSSWORLDS? Oh, you can just play on those. Oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of want to practice that. Trying to think what would help the most. Probably that. But making your own set for time trial versus other things, that's interesting as a prospect. I can go with that. That's alright. That's interesting. I wish I could be Blaze. I wish I could be my beloved baby girl. What is this path? It's just like the ideal route or something? No one's going to follow that. People are crazy. Oh, this handles so much better. What? Why did handling feel so loose and this feels good? Alright, alright, alright. That threw me off. Okay. That's a choice, because rings give you more... Yeah. Oh, and it does not care. Wait, what? Okay. 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 Get our zoomies on. Yeah, you cannot fuck them up. I, like, tried that time. This feels closer to what I'm used to from the cars, honestly. Okay, it's traditional. 3-lap structure, measure your boosts out, got it. Wish I had a little bit more ring magnetism, I'll say that. Maybe that's one of your things you can get? I don't know. Alright, I still don't know what that thing is. It's very cool looking. Yeah, good, Amy. Shiny. Whatever that was about. Oh, I hit max rings. Yeah, that's much more how I want to roll. Okay. Okay. Yeah, the gear feels more like what I want this to be. B. 5 seconds off. I'll take that for just fucking around. Alright. Hey, look at that. Womp. Now it's a beautiful, ugly shade of brown. Okay. Okay. The car sucked. I liked that. So, let's feel brave, because I never got an online match on the other one. Let's look what we can do here. Oh, okay. Get big rocket. Make these blow up faster. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay. I don't hate that. I'm gonna take Big Punch. Because it's a big punch. Actually, I'm gonna choose violence. You know what? I'm gonna choose violence. And me? We're doing violence, okay? Oh, this is gonna suck. I'm gonna do terrible. Let's go. I do not play games like this online because I am not Yuri. Oh, wish me luck. Yeah, I'll race Orbot and Cubot. That's fine. I mean, look at them. What are they gonna do to me? Oh. Damn. I see the Chow audience is 3D Podos, Wonder Museum, or, well, you know what? Let's try a Podos. No, we're good. I like what I got.
Hello.
Oh, and it's time to kill.
Hey guys.
Well, we're not going to get much killing done right now. I'm about to do a race. I'll log in. See if I get it in time. We're going to the stadium. Okay. A question mark's like Yo Mama's house. Well, I'm one of 2 people that bothered to set a title, so I'm scared of Speedy. I'm immediately afraid of Speedy. Waiting. We don't have a solid state. How dare you do this to us? Okay. It is cross-platform too, though, so there's that. I think. Oh. Tails! Mr. Prower. Fuck you. Oh. This feels about how I felt online ago. Goodbye, Tails! Oh, you can just hold it. That makes a huge difference. Period brownies. Sure, man. Oh, you can't just Just a casual T-Rex in my face. Oh, I could ride in people's back drift. Okay, cool. Didn't mention that at all. Okay, 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 you wanna go? You wanna go? Ah, I keep screwing up that corner, and that's not good. Oh boy, this is not charming. That was a violent ending. Yeah, I've gotten about one bot a stream. I didn't even see how I did. I was distracted by the bot. Fifth? Well, I was more violent than anyone else, so I have that going for me. Wow. Apparently I ranked up. Air Trick Bounty. Okay, that actually pairs quite well with what I'm doing. Now we're talking about synergies. But we need to get more races to unlock more slots. I'll see what I can do. I need to commit violence really quick. I don't know how to. I don't. Oh, I hold. Okay, okay. Hold on. I gotta do something on the stupid phone real quick. Please wait. I'm having a big think-thonk. Okay, can I commit any violence, or have they stalemated us effectively? They fuckers. Alright. Well, no violence for me. That's that. Have a nice day. Cool. Alright, alright, alright. Oh, what the hell? Metal Harbor. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was already matchmaking me. I'll get you next time, Ina. I'm sorry. I was looking at my phone. It was time for violence, but there was no violence to do because no one was doing violence but me. We fucking standoffed each other. Oh well. Oh, that Amy's in like a whole thing. Alright. Like, it's gotta have a story mode, right? Dompa's here. You have to hold A. Oh, that kills me. Ugh. I need to stop trying to drift there. That's killing me. Amy counts really fast. You like the speed of Amy's counting? Rude. I tried to do something clever there. I don't think it really worked, but I'm just flying now. Okay, so sometimes that is one, sometimes it's not, I think is what that's going for. The bloom here is a little intense. A lot of boosts. Fuck her. Bye. Oh my god. Just extreme violence here the last second. Okay. Talk. Oh, my sad face is sincere. It was a good chance of something good happening there for a second, but then I ate shit.
Finish!
All right, let me see if I can get you in this time, Ina.
I did my best, and that's what counts.
No, Amy, we're getting graded here, actually. You just failed the class. I'm sorry. You got that nice... Well, I'm good at that. I'm good at violence. Shocking no one. Amy Rose is good at violence.
Right.
Alright, let's do main menu. Let's do main menu. We'll do it that way. I'll figure this out. From the top. Alright, invite friends from friend list. Oh, that's Inari. Invite. I didn't see what that message was, but it's doing a big old thinky thump. I can get thumbs up. Did it work? Did it function? Should I do it again? App friends. Add friend. Oh, because you can get friends on other... Oh, okay. Already in the lobby, just having a big load. Oh, hey, there you go. Oh my god. It's shadowed a Hodge Hedge. Alright, alright, Mr. Has an Aura. I see how you are. I see how you are. Doing your best for friggin' Super Shadow up in here. Now you can shame me publicly. I see what you wanted. It's fine.
Aww.
I really like my attack chance up. For sake of argument, that does take less. Ooh, that's a potential trade. That's very interesting. I'll try Sandro. I don't know that yet.
Hello. Hey.
Oh, there's also quite a few people in here, so...
Good.
I mean, I could get the aura eventually, but... Again, you're saved. That's a transfer, as far as I know. So is it worth it? Is it worth it? I probably get to do Joker Fest. I'll probably be busy tomorrow. I need to make up for not doing yesterday. I was a naughty girl. Busy setting some stuff up. Calculating. Alright. Riding the Edge, fully licensed, perfect drift master, tinkerer. I feel inadequate. I notice everyone with an aura is Shadow the Hedgehog. There are 4 of you. There we go, baby girls. Oh. Sorry, Cream. So many hedgehogs, and I'm the only pretty one here. Shadow feeling deeply insulted. Hyena. Yeah, I can do it. Oh, there's balls everywhere. That's probably stupid of me. Oh my god! Where am I going? Sure! I'm up here, I guess. I'm kind of getting my ass... Okay. Well, goodbye, every pony. Wow. So much violence happened very quickly. I was doing so good, too. Jesus. It is hard to be more last place than me unless you disconnect. I won't lie. I think I just got the blue shell. Oh, I'm sorry. The guy in last place is now beating me. Jesus. Violence is now occurring. Come on with the big-ass monster trucks. All the shadows won. I am unhappy.
Well, at least I tried.
Shut up. At least I got out of the bottom half. Jesus Christ. I was getting mauled there for a while. Just recovering it all was a miracle.
Keep getting better.
Yeah, whatever. I don't even know what that means. That sucked. Oh no, that was lap 2, actually. Lap 2, I got creamed from 2nd place to 12th. Very quickly. So, the last lap is where I jumped up 6. It's just all 4 shadows with your fucking auras on hoverboards were so far ahead, there was no way. It was all 4 shadows, auras, hoverboards. I was like, okay, sure, man. Oh.
Hello. Hello. Sounds good.
You know, I think they might have a problem. Just looking at that albatross board is awesome. Looking at the genuine spread here, there is 1 racer here in a car. 2. There's 2 in a car. Everyone else is on the boards. I think maybe there's a bit of a balance issue. Get better at it. Oh, the fact that the fucking red shell equivalent hovers over you is so weird. It's not even the only one, actually. Oh, can't really get away with that. So we'll have my figure something out there. Oh, I'd love to just eat the sandworm's face. Oh my god. Does playing with Ina put me up against much higher ranked people or something? Like, am I just getting my ass creamed for a reason, or am I just bad? I am so tired of the monster trucks. I don't like them. Feels so bad to be on the receiving end of that. Oh, my patience is expiring quickly, guys. Give me a chance! Jesus!
Finish!
Well, that's embarrassing.
Fuck off, Amy. I'm about to mute the game.
All right.
So yes, it is pairing me with much stronger people right now, I think, because I'm still getting a ton of points for getting my shit wrecked. I don't even have whatever the monster truck is, it looks like. Oh. I am doing my best, but being at the bottom of the pack and constantly getting mauled is very quickly not being fun. Game is fine. The fucking boards are clearly the winners here, because everyone's playing them, which tells me nothing else really feels good to most people. I know E rank levels up quicker. I'm saying I got 33 points for 10th place. I was getting 5 points for 6th earlier. Like, genuinely, I'm facing harder opponents, so it's giving me more points just for not getting completely dead. Which, fine. It's just... there's only so much getting beat in the face before you're like, alright, come on now. I think Ina disappeared. Yeah, now there's a bunch of cars here now all of a sudden. You notice that? So.
Hello. Hello.
That tells me something. Sorry, but it's fun. It's just... good grief. I was getting absolutely destroyed.
Do it.
I don't know if the gadgets make that much of a difference or just having more customization. It doesn't seem like there's that many good options for customization, but knowing the courses probably makes a big difference. But I'm like, oh my gosh, migraine's back. Yeah, this seems more where I'm supposed to be. I feel like I'll rank better and get less out of it, but wow. That's alright. Oh my god, what is this course? The setup of the beta also puts me in a position where I can't do what I normally do, which is in a nice, calm environment, learn what the hell I'm actually trying to achieve. Like, learn the courses and time trials and shit is what I tend to do. That's not happening here. Which sucks for me. It's trial by fire, and I am squishy. Apparently I'm choosing the route. Didn't realize I was leading. What the hell was that, game? Why was I suddenly, like, not steering? Pushing left and she's going right. Did something hit me that affects that? Or was it just taking a dookie dookie? I thought I was in the lead. I was doing good. Then violence occurred and everyone got rude and now it's a clusterfuck. I'm done with online. Oh. It's not bad. I avoid it for a reason. Being ranked stresses me out. Travel ring selector. Oh yeah, I actually did that for maybe the first time ever. Cool. So I wish there was a second Grand Prix to work on. Or something. So that's much more my speed. I will say, as much as I like using triggers for driving, not needing them 100% of the time does mean less fatigue. Though my drift hand is still getting tired. I could use the bumper, but this doesn't feel as good to me. Did I get anything interesting out of that? Well, no aura for me. That's kind of fine. That's cute. Problem is, I don't really... Less boost seems bad, more handling seems good, less speed seems less than ideal. Try to make this move faster. No, in fact, the trigger is just rotated. Oh, you cannot scale both at once. That is... Why? Why can you only decal the front? Why does the decal go underneath this stuff? Like, where is this even good for? Fuck it then. Oh no, it does. It's just... Oh, okay. Okay, we're going for... I don't know if I like that. Would hope other characters get their heads in the full one. I would hope a lot of things, actually. So... I think I need to shift gears. I am. The migraine is bad. I've had it for like a week. Don't feel too bad. It's not you or the game. It's just... We're in a state. Sure, that works, I guess. What? I hate that the default view doesn't let you actually see what the hell you're doing. It's really kind of frustrating. There's stuff I like and there's stuff I don't. I don't know how else to put it. Okay, I'll just take 100 of those real quick. I'm hoping there's going to be more than 10 challenges per thing, but I guess I get it. I don't know what those mean. That would be awesome, but unless... Okay, that's just 4-1. I never did hit one of the shortcut rings. I don't know what Race Park is. Is that going to be the story thing or something? I don't know. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Level 4 exists, that would be helpful. Tricks don't go past 3, you can just do it because animator here. Okay. Kinda gathered that. Yeah, I did that too. Oh, you used it to the thing. Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I wonder if that's what was in for. I thought I turned it off. Thought so, but wasn't sure. Good to know. Okay, yeah, kind of figured that out. Figured that out. That's counter drift. That is specifically counter drift. Got it. Even though they have a term for it. Oh, that's how you're supposed to do that. Okay. Oh, that's what he does. That's interesting. I thought he was just giving me free shit. Yeah. Okay. Suction Rings Islands Princess. I haven't gotten that one yet. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Risk reward. King Boom Boo is apparently the blue shell. That's kind of a blue shell, but meaner. Yeah, ghosts or squid or whatever, but it actually has an effect on you. It's probably smart. Yep. Yep. Rude. Rude ass fucking thing. Rude. I do like squishing things, and Big the Cat is a great example of how to do that. So here's the fun thing about Drill. It's been around for at least 2 games. I don't think I've ever pulled it. This is a much better laser than the last one had, I will say that. Laser was interesting in team, but really hard to use well. Like I never managed to. Doesn't mean you couldn't. Final Burst is the strongest, didn't realize that. Yes, I am that bitch that reads these menus a little bit. Legend. Yeesh. I'll just vibe for a little bit here, don't mind me.
Yeah, let's go!
Not change these from here? Oh. Oh. Where the fuck were you? Okay. You know what? That makes sense. Let's do bounties. Let's go for rings. See what this does for me. I think this will do me good. Little adjustment, little tweaking. A rogue I'm not exploding every 3 seconds. Best track to test it on, but alright. It's just programmed to always do that. Alright. Next to me. There's an audio cue for being full, don't get me wrong. Okay, that one's gone, right? Would they feel the need to do that when it's... I mean, it's probably something with how the game is built. Okay, look at all those. Eee. What was that? Yeah.
Look at me go!
1 second. 1 second. 1 freaking second. 1 second. 1 second, they say. No, we're doing that again. No. No, 1 second. No. No, Mama no likey 1 second. Mama no approve. Mama say, not 1 second. Alright, your 2 second theory is not too bad, actually, there, Yuri. I tried. I'll get that one next lap, so we don't. We're not getting it at all. Let's try this. Why is my mouse on screen? I don't know. Damn right. Yeah, I'll just ram that wall, don't worry about it. Is it worth it? I don't know. Well, that was worth it either, but we did it. I'm gonna use it. Watch this. Tears up some shit. Boom, we got 2 items. That air really screwed me up, huh? Yeah, it did. Alright, so it was working well until I fucked up. That's fine. We're trying some stuff. Boost really hurts the handle, which is not ideal. But mean, I lost, right? Oh? I don't think I did good enough.
Look at me go!
That second lap screwed me. Yep. Down to half a second. Alright, welcome to the kind of anal I get into. Mauling me to death. No. See, we're busy. We're doing this. We're... The thing that bores most people is what chills me out. Like, alright, yeah. Up to being a person with high anxiety. And that boost for this is nice. I think I'd rather save it for later because I really boned it. Sucking it up. I haven't gotten any of those boosts, and I'm still ahead of myself, so that's probably good. Things are maxed until I hit a wall, so that's good, I guess. Okay, now I want this. Because next lap has all the extra boosts. That dead center. This and try to drift through. Then do that, and then grab one of those and zoom along. We want to get to the outside edge of this. That works. Hurts, but it works. Just last a second. I need to respect that more. I swear I'm trying to do tricks, and it's just like, nah. That's looking good. That's looking good. Can I stick the landing? Never got that one, but that's okay. I wanted to cut this corner probably good if I had the handling for it, but I really don't. Suck it. Mwah.
Look at me go!
I did. I am now satisfied. There's an S rank. Shit. That's not happening right now. I'm nowhere close to that. Alright. Oh, I'm now allowed to do leaderboards. You need A rank to even do leaderboards. You know what? That's fair, I guess. I didn't know I could get subbed. Nice. I don't know what that means for me right now. But I will say this. I got to go potty. I'll be right back. Thank you. I will get subbed, idiot. You now have a funky new thing that says first. So, I think that's your prize. I think because you're my first sub, so... Congrats, you now have a funny little badge. I'll be right back. I'm back. Good night, Ina. Oh. Liz's emote drop is... Oh, there's a man there. I said, come at me. Fair enough, you know, it's all good. Oh, yeah, if I click outside, it breaks everything. I forgot about that. Why am I got a ping? Since I'm already breaking everything. Ina, and, oh. Okay. Alright. I don't get to actually see where I'm at on the thing, huh? Alright, that's fine. That's fine. Let's, what's news? Free crossover Joker begins tomorrow at, wow, this is running longer than I thought. I guess it is all weekend. Oh my lord. Don't show me that. I'll just be sad. Okay. I see we kept these Sonic Forces NPCs in the background. Just in bulk. We still will not show you any humans except Eggman. Not anymore. Oh, there's a checkpoint. That assumes that there are more of them to get at some point. Alright. Alright. Let's try this again. Oh, my quality is ass on my end. That's sad. Festival's its own thing. Is there a way to make the news not? I don't know. Okie dokie. You okay, baby? Oh, she's put some noise on. Alright, let's see how I do. I've gotten some practice in. I hit my first A rank. We got something. But can I unlock more characters by beating rivals, or is that just off the table? Like, is that how you get Blaze? I've seen no Blaze the Cat. I think if that were the case, we would see some Blaze the Cat. We got you Metal Heart. I generally do approve of this Amy update as a whole, visually. On top of having some level of curve to her again. The main one here is if you look at the skirt, we're not seeing directly up it all the time because it actually goes down a bit. That's nice. That's not always been the case. Orbot's clapping for me. They picked mine. I should get $1 million for that. I should get the game for free. I should, 1 sub point. I have 1 sub point. I don't know what that means. Never fear. Amy Rose is here. Hey, look, a shadow in a car. Hey, look, a cream in a Batmobile. I mean, she wins stylely. Honestly, they give us enough control over decals and colors and parts and stuff. They should have, like, fashion contests for your cars. I think that would be pretty cool, actually. Personally. I'm gonna hit a guy. Alright, I didn't want that boost anyway. It really is like bumper car violence at some point. That's how it begins to feel. That's a jump. Ouch. You used your violence against me. What does that mean? a million boosts and I'm missing all of them? You're right. Does mean that. Haha. Good lord, this ravaged me. Camera? Camera? What was that? Sure. It finally happened. I finally got a drill. There's a car path down there. Missed. Fool. I beat the thing that was aimed at me. I did it. I won a race. Good God. And now I'm goopy. Oh, you turn green. That's cute. Oh, you had 20 seconds for that. Number one booster. I bet I friggin' was. Oh yeah, I got the D, boys. You can now become a monster truck out the gate. Like the most rude-ass of all time. Alright. That feels better. That feels better. I'm not incompetent. I was just getting beat up really, really bad. Oh, I have a... I have a crown. You love me, I have a crown. I don't want monster truck. I'm actually quite happy with what I have. I think that works pretty well for me. The ring bounty helps. The big bump, bump, boom, boom helps. But, screen. I will say the music on this is not really standing out to me. I don't really like the remixes that much. I haven't tried Wonder Museum yet, or Mystic Jungle. Do Wonder Museum. That seems like a fun place to get educated about a world that makes no sense. Oh, I dismissed this. Oh, there we go.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
Stadium. What all these icons mean? I have infinite something and 0 bits. Close. Apparently close enough. I tried to get away with something there and it didn't really work. I should try to get that shortcut this time. I never have. Was it? getting too greedy. That third level takes a while. Ooh, that's a new one. Magma Planet. Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. Can't drift up or down. I really want to, but you can't. Oh, you can go plane again. Kind of fine with not being plane. Get off me. More. All about boost, and it's hard for me to boost as a plane because the handling's so different. I haven't really had a chance to practice it, so it's mostly in the friggin' what you call it? It's this middle segment, the CROSSWORLDS, as it were. So it makes it really hard for me to get the hang of it. I don't have a way to practice it right now outside of just fuck around and find out. That's a good thing to have. It's over. I win. And I got the shortcut. It's the first time for everything. I thought it was close to the end, and I was going to say that. I won by a lot. Wow. I feel bad on that one. Maybe I should have stuck with Ian. He's in bed now. Once I click, I do okay. It just takes me a while. And to not be so flustered, and I'm very good at being flustered. Oh, it doesn't show the times. That's what I wanted to see.
All right.
Oh, that's rude. Bing. My plate's golden. Alright, let's look at that. Let's look at that. Let's look at that, shall we? I hope my bitrate's not total ass for everybody. I'm going to check on OBS, see what's happening. Check my PC. We're doing okay. We're not dropping frames or nothing. CPU is relatively 4.2%. Tell me the graphics card is doing all of it without telling me. So, yeah. Oh. Oh! What do we got? Mini ring thief. Okay, wait a minute. These people want to play bumper cars with me? I'm kind of getting a full ring build going, aren't I? Oh. I really am. Okay. Okay. Oh. Oh. Oh, that's so rude. Oh, you can go full bumper cars, guys. You can get your quick charges up. You can get to a 4. Okay. Okay. Okay, this does get quite interesting. Wait, can I No. Okay. So colliding gives you rings. Air tricks give me rings. Starting gives me rings. I could get rid of that in the air trick one and keep the bounty and do the... Hold on, I'm playing. I'm all about boost. But I'm also all about rings. Collide with people to get rings and to boost, which I am better at than usual. And I can hold a lot of rings, but I've lost my start bounty. Ooh, I like having that, but I really like having the rings. Ring denial? Ring denial? Okay. This is coming together. I'm getting the idea of where this goes. I don't think in the main game you'd want to jump straight in online quite like this. Because you would want to unlock more of those things to have a chance in hell. But since they've kind of pushed us into this, I do wish the saves would transfer, but I get why. Maybe it'd have a longer... I don't know. I wish I could have Toad's voice on here. Crossover with Mario. Nintendo would never let it happen. It's cross-platform. They'd be like, Mario on Switch only. And it's like, no. You know, I'm pretty good at Rainbow Garden. Just Toad's. Hello! I can't do the... You know what I mean. Oh. 3 of us in here. 3 of us in here with crowns.
Hey guys!
Mix and matching your emotes would be really cool. There's a bunch of stuff in here I think would be really cool to have more say over. I can live with that. But I'm not mad. Okay, it's putting you up against people with 3 digits now. Like, hey, you've won 2 in a row. Let's see you. Let's stick the landing, asshole. All right. You know what? That's fair. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm immediately loving that. Just, yeah, let me bonk you. Come here. Come here. Let me bonk you. You want to play bumper cars with me? I'll play bumper cars. Let's go, assholes. Bye. Did I mention I love violence? Oh, that's a terrible spot for that to have landed. It also makes me less upset about being stuck in the pack, because if I ram people, I'm doing great. That's a wall. Yeah, I find this is the violent part. Like, that second lap is the scary bit. It's funny, though. Ah, fuck that up. That's bad. It's over. Lack of items is doing me no favors. I did my best. I won 2 in a row. I can't be too mad. See, that's better. See, I mean, good attitude. You're not reflecting it in your animation, but yeah. Did you only gain points, you don't really lose? That hurts less. Crash pads. Put that in your smack people around build. Gotcha. Alright. Bumper bully. Yeah, you bet, bitch. No, I'll be a bully. That's funny. Now you're speaking my language. Or wants to smack into me, I'll smack him back. If this is just the betas, I wonder... I don't think I've seen Wonder Museum yet. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I think I have, actually. It was a nightmare.
Hello. You.
Yes!
A lot of last second changes there, I see. Zaz gets a lot of mileage. I don't know why. People just... He's in Dash, too. Tricky. It's tricky. I should look at my titles. It's been a minute. Waiting on your pathetic load times. Good enough. She's trying to ram me. Yeah, I can't assume no one else has it either, because they're all also getting the boost. I think he got hit by the thing aiming at me. Oh, his name was Queef for a second. Ooh.
Magma Blast! Frenzy!
Mentioned I'm a boost build, assholes. This is the one place I've seen where I'm like actually getting mileage out of that. Yeah. Down might have been okay, but I'm not good at playing, and I'm just accepting that. You wanna go? I can be as violent as you want, guys. I'm good at it. That's for you. I just lost. Good fight. That ending. I ate shit at the end. That ended it. I went from ruling the dead. Not getting any of these either. Fifth. Solid. Alright.
I did my best, and that's what counts.
Yeah, you get this. Yeah, okay. So I'm great until I slip up, then it goes south fast.
All right.
I'll do one more. Not bad. I'm enjoying it. I can see myself getting into it. It's an adjustment. I will say that. But it is good. Interesting. Get less parts on an extreme gear. You can see what the... Okay. Master plate with nothing on it. Yo, I master plate every day. I'm a child. A 38-year-old child.
Yes, pick my map again. Show me favoritism. Make a me.
Tinkerer 4-star? What does that
Mean. How do you get shiny things?
Well, I like the jellyfish lanterns. I'd straight up hang that in my room. Those are gorgeous. And that's my idea. No! Yeah, my titties. I'm flat. Because the slipstreams don't help her. If you're speed type, those are probably your ticket. Genuinely. It's interesting to consider. That makes me so sad those weren't hitting. What? No. Oh, really? Man, I keep getting squished. I don't like being squished. No racing game has ever been fun to be squished in. Being squished is mean. Sure thing, man. Okay, sure. I'm way back here. And something's targeting me. And I'm getting smacked around. I'm way back here even more. Imagine having items. Imagine not being in last. Oh my gosh. There we go. I am so sick of your shit, Eggman. I don't even know if it's Eggman. It's just an Eggman-ass vehicle. Fighting over 5th place now. Everyone else is gone. I will earn my 5th. Fuck you. I can't see what place I'm in. It's not in the HUD. That's weird. I wasn't seeing it. Am I crazy?
Well, at least I tried.
Am I off my rocker? Oh, we're sideways. 5th, yeah. Big fight for 5th. I won't lie.
All right.
I don't know if I like this build as much, but it is interesting. It's almost 10. Okay, I should do something else. Oh, I'm an addict. To say 2 hours. I mean, that's pretty good for a racing game, right? Okay, so let's Before I wander off too far, I would like to see... Oh, wait. Like going online, was I able to... Oh, okay. I thought maybe you could change them after all. I was excited. Let's look at our challenges, shall we? Oh, we're really close to getting that fucking aura. That's the problem. Indrift seems fun too. Yeah. Yeah, warn them what we're about. Fine. You know what? I'm friggin'. Let's try this. Let's see what happens. No, I don't have time for that. I'll do one more. I'll do one more and see if I can get enough for that. I don't know if I will. I almost have enough for an aura. Making Ari proud of me. Kind of clogs my hard cutoff, though. I should do something else. Maybe thralls or something for a bit. I don't know. Maybe I'll just poke toms. Maybe I'll just eat snack and watch TV. I don't know. You never know with me. I'm an enigma. Oh, mystery. I like how Cubot's just like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here, guys. Colorful Mall? Never even seen Colorful Mall come up. What's that? Yeah, I do feel like the farther up we get, the more everyone's just on the boards. And maybe it's just some sort of bias or them being boost type, but they seem a little overpowered.
Nice.
Sure.
See ya.
Like, boosting is such a god stat in these usually. Okay, smoothie, fine. This is someone's first race. What? My last one. Is that okay? Him become fair. What's in here? Man, blast, that's what's in there. The enjoy health up, that's what's in there.
Magma Planet.
Coming through.
Oh, it's on the bottom. I'm just kidding.
Final lap.
Violent. I'm a creature of violence. I just pop that right there. Fuck you. Want those boosters next? You want to use those? Have fun with that. Yes. End on the high.
And the crowd goes wild! Yay!
Okay, when you're playing with your own rank, it's not so bad. When you actually have gadgets and can customize your playstyle, that charmy bee, you say. Almost everyone there was different. That's cool. Number one time spent on top. At 400, it's 500. Oh, boo. Whatever. Goal for later, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it carries. One more would get me a lot of things, but it is time to call it. It just is. I should probably start mentally winding down, or at least not doing this. So, I'm going to say bye-bye for the time being. To all three of you lingering with me. The theory this would bring in new people didn't quite work out. That's okay. I'm a rando. I'm fine with that. It was alright. I had concerns going on. I really did. But it's not bad at all. It's just different. So, you know, learning curve, but I'm having a good time. And that's probably what matters. I might... What is that? Tomorrow night is the Joker Cup. I will be streaming artwork. Probably. I don't know how long that lasts. I'd have to look. I doubt I'll get to stream any of that. But there it is. Cool. For the sake of trying Joker, less cel-shaded than usual. I don't know. Whatever. Let's be real. I'm Rose and Blaze. Those are my girls. I'm predictable. I am hoping there's more to it. There are some really cool things in here. I like the gadget system. Genuinely do. I think it's pretty cool. I think that's a great improvement over what it was in Team Racing. Oh, Warbot and Cubot are here too. Look at that. Customization is fine. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more than 4 of each thing because these number variances are not great. Genuinely. Not that good. I would prefer to have more speed with boost because it means your boost is feeding into something more consistently. That's just me, but that's a balance thing. You'd have to give up something else. I don't really care about power. Power is basically your defense when you smack into somebody, which is fine. I'm kind of built to smack into people, but you have so many other options that I'm not sure if it has as much of a point in this one. Which is sad because it already wasn't great. But yeah, I mean, for a beta selection, this isn't bad at all. Them's my thoughts for now. I'm just shy of getting the aura, but again, if your save doesn't carry, it's not super important. So, I think that'll do her for now. I'm actually kind of hungry. I'm gonna go eat something. I hope you all have a lovely night. Let's stop the most repetitive song in the world. I will say that bit of feedback. They need a better song. That is so obnoxious. I hate it. Just too repetitive. Way too repetitive. But hey. Game itself, fun. I have hopes. We will see how it goes. Thank you for joining me while I go on this little adventure of excitement, then concern, then excitement. Again, I had a good time. The Tylenol helped. I did take Tylenol somewhere in there, and I'm feeling much better, just so everyone knows. The migraine is not helping. Did Phasma the other night with the migraine. Don't recommend that. Oh. Trying to think with a brain fart. No, thank you. All right. Have a lovely evening. I will see you all next time. Tomorrow is Pixel, probably. If I find any time at all, I need to do some commission work to make up for Thursday. Because, again, migraine. Good night. Mwah. See you later.